Welcome, everyone. Today, we've got a hell of an episode. We're going to be discussing two things that can absolutely destroy you as a day trader. And if you do not work on them, you will most certainly fail. How's it going, Adam?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm good. It's early this morning, but we're going to get into it. This is a kind of a continuation on a series that we were doing before. Just to give a quick little background before we get into it, folks, we were doing the truth behind the trade, and we will be dealing with day traders as well, where we'll discuss the trades that we're taking. But what we do in the afternoon session at Tricktrades is we go over essentially the truth behind the trade. It's done live on screen share for all of our members. So what we're going to be doing in this one is we're going to be dissecting a member that did a trade clinic, and we're going to be going over two issues that I really spotted that I think we could dive a little deeper in, and I think you guys are going to get a lot out of. So I think we're just going to dive right into it, if that's cool with you, Adam, and I think we're going to go from there. Now, just as a little side note, we had some technical issues. Don't get scared when I play this video, because we're going to show you the clip, because I think that that's useful to hear it directly from the trader himself instead of me just telling the story. I would rather show you guys the clip. There is some echo and some background. I'm going to turn on the subtitles for you. We'll get that fixed in the future, but I think it's still important. It's not that bad when you hear our trading moderator talk. There's no echo. It's just on the trader's end. So I wanted to tell you guys that. Now let's get into this, because this is going to be great for you guys that are learning to trade and are struggling. So let's rock and roll here. Give me one quick sec. Okay, so I'm going to press play here, and let's do this.
I think I got it on the wrong side. But
fat finger to short should have been.
Yeah.
See, fat finger to short.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what, you didn't mean to enter, but you did.
Yeah. That's what I have in the notes, but I really don't remember messing this up.
Okay, so it's important to note here that Jaron has taken a trade, and we're reviewing his trade, and he's saying that he fat fingered the trade. But if you can see, and it might be hard to make out on the video, you're going to see three entries, which are the blue arrows. Your first one, which is the fat finger, and then he has two other entries. So right there, we smell a rat, right? So to speak. We know something isn't right. We know that something isn't being told to the 100% to the truth. Okay, and that's what this is all about. As traders, we need to be 100% truthful. So let's continue on here. It's a short clip. I don't think I'm going to play all of this 3-minute clip, so just hang tight.
Can I just put you on something here?
I definitely did.
I don't see a fat finger in this. I see a purposeful trade, because you corrected it. If that was a genuine fat finger, you would have took it off. If that was a fat finger, I would then see an arrow here saying you took it off because you'd made a mistake. I don't see that. I see maybe the first entry was a fat finger, but the fact you didn't take it off, you let it come all the way down and then decided to start correcting your average down here.
Well, I guess what I'll say to that is,
one thing I want to note here too, just a little bit of psychology and human behavior. When you call somebody on something, so Kelvo is still speaking, and do you see how he immediately gets defensive? And it's not like a bad thing. I just want to point this out. So when you're being coached, and even before the coach stops talking, you're like you want to get your 2 cents in. Well, you have to remember that moderators or coaches that are skilled, we already know what the issue is. Even before you say, no matter what you say, we already know. Why? Because we have years of experience doing this. So I wanted to point that out, that's like a little tell or a little like giveaway when before somebody even stops talking, you're like, well, like you already want to jump in there and like defend yourself. In those moments, it's best just to sit back, because then that tells me you're not fully engaged in listening. You're too concerned about jumping in there and defending yourself. So you're not listening to what the coach is about to say to possibly and potentially correct that behavior. So I wanted to point that out.
That's maybe what I should have done, but the way I think about things back in Wheelhouse One, just trading one contract. My perception of maybe is wrong. Is that once you've taken a trade and exited, you should be done for the day.
Mm-hmm.
I wasn't willing to be done for the day. That's why.
So let's remember what he just said. One of our rules is we are to take one trade a day when you're learning and trying to gain consistency. Once you have consistency, obviously you can start taking multiple trades a day. But when you're learning, once you've taken that trade, that is it. Okay. But that is a purposeful trade. Now, what he said was, I wasn't willing to be done for the day. That's the truth. He knew that at the beginning of this video. He says, oh, I don't remember. I think it was a fat finger. As it starts to unfold, the truth comes out where it's like, he did know he screwed up on the entry. He did not mean to enter into that trade, but he wasn't willing to cut it. Now, obviously, we can see that there's issues. So just remember that. We're going to discuss this a little bit more once the clip is done.
That's why I added in correct average. But maybe I'm thinking about it wrong. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think I see what you've done. You've taken a short accidentally.
It was more right in there.
You've shorted into lows down here for some reason.
Yeah,
and you've added into here,
right.
and then you've gone out into here, right?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I don't know if that was a fat finger or if it wasn't. If it was, then, obviously you took a risk on holding. You took a risk on adding when it wasn't in your wheelhouse. You've gone away with it on this occasion. So I suppose there's good and there's bad. And the bad is you shouldn't have added. It's outside your wheelhouse. But if I had to say, well, let's try and be positive about it, I guess the only positive we can say is it does show you've got some confidence to add, to recognize a small resistance area and the opportunity for a quick bounce back.
Okay, so we're going to leave it at that, and we're going to discuss this. Obviously, the clip goes on for a little bit, but let's continue on here. So I want to discuss this with Adam. Now, one of the reasons why you guys might be wondering, well, why did that moderator, and for those that don't know who that is, that's Kelvo, that's our afternoon or late morning session moderator. Why would we say, well, there's some good and there's some positive? We need to remember that when traders are just learning, they're fragile. Okay. Your mental capital is really important. And sometimes if you really hammer new traders, right, or traders that are trying to gain consistency, it can kind of break them. That's not necessarily what we want to do. Now, there are times where we will dig our heels in and absolutely not give them an inch. And that depends on the trader. But that's one of the first things that I wanted to say. But let's talk about the truth here, Adam. Mm-hmm. Now, this is something that we talk about a lot in all of our videos about getting to the truth behind the trade. And the truth is what matters. Now, at the beginning of this, you remember, Adam, he said he wasn't sure if it was a fat finger and, it could have been. He didn't remember. Right there, I know for a fact that's a lie, okay? Now, it seems like a harmless lie. It isn't. And I'll tell you why I'm saying it's a lie. We all know, come on, guys, we're adults. Number one, we're adults. A lot of us have children of our own. We have important jobs or a career of some kind. We drive cars down the highway doing 80 miles an hour. We're competent, reasonable adults. We obviously know what we've done when we're taking a trade. This trade was just taken, by the way. It was only like a few days prior, something like that. So we know he's lying, right? We can't have that. That's where you need to dig your heels in, right? The reason, I don't know what it is. I think a lot of people just kind of stray away from wanting to work on themselves. It's that kindergarten mentality, isn't it, Adam? Like that we're all raised with since kindergarten. And that's why I call it kindergarten mentality. That's not like a dig or something like that, because that's what it is. We've been trained and raised since kindergarten to lie, to cover things up because mistakes are bad. We'll never get to the truth of it, will we, Adam?
We'll never get to the truth of why we lie or where it starts from.
We'll never get to the bottom of our problems if we continue to lie, right? Like, people are doing this because they want to cover it up. They want to cover up. We've been told since day one that red is bad, that type of thing. Like it's so ingrained in us that you'll get made fun of, right? You don't want to. That's why a lot of people are quiet in class, because if you say something wrong, people will make fun of you, right? It's that sort of stuff, right? Like, and I just think that
we don't want to be exposed.
Yeah.
Right. We don't want to be naked.
Yeah.
So there's the shame and guilt when we know we're doing something wrong that we shouldn't have done, and we did it anyways. And I think there's a thing with being adults. We were talking just before we started about, why is it really that hard, to be honest? But I think there's a journey to that point where we decide living life honestly is easier. But since kindergarten and all these things, we're always covering up things to hide our shame and to hide guilt. And I think until you reach that point, we're all living two lives, right? And there's just different lives. There's the life who we truly are, where the truth is. Then there's the version of ourselves we present to the world and present to ourselves. And in between those two versions is a gap. And the farther the gap, the more struggle we have in life. And trading doesn't tolerate the gap, but all other channels of life tolerate the gap to a degree, right? Yep. Our relationship with our parents, our friends, we can have a pretty decent gap of what we can get away with, but trading doesn't tolerate any gap, and it exposes the reality of who we are as a person and how quickly or willing we are to cover things up. And that's what I love about it and respect it so much. And I think until traders respect that trading allows no gap of lies, until you respect that, you might as well be doing wheelies on a motorcycle at 100 miles an hour in rush hour traffic. You're just, it's a matter of time before you demolish yourself.
100%. To expand a little bit more on what Adam said about, trading doesn't allow that gap. Trading, now remember, there's gambling, and then there's pissing around, and then there's trading, right? Like when you take this as a professional career and you're like a true professional about it, that's what I love about it, is the honesty of it. There's no lying there. Like trading doesn't tolerate that. There's no room for that. It doesn't allow that. And it's so easy for us in our outside lives. That's kind of what I say, which is your regular life outside of trading. It's easy to lie. Everybody does it for the most part. Like that's how people roll on a day-to-day basis, because it's normal, it's accepted. Instead of the fish's actual size is like this, it's always this big. It's always that little bit bigger. And I'm someone that, I made the decision years ago, because once you notice and you tell these little lies, trying to keep them straight, it's impossible. So I kind of discovered that at a pretty young age, that it's like, well, this is ridiculous. The people around me know that I'm lying. Like, they're not stupid. So they're looking at me like I'm a fucking jerk off. That's how they're looking at me. And I don't want that. I want people to know when I speak, that is as clear of truth as it could possibly get. Like anytime I go out fishing, to use that fishing analogy, when I say the fish is this big, that's exactly how it was, give or take that little bit. Like that's what it was. You can take the shit that I say to the bank, so to speak. And I think it's about, there's still honorable people out there like Jaron. Jaron's not a bad guy. Jaron's a great guy. And it's just something that people need to really start working on. I don't think traders understand how important it is to be fully honest, not only with their coach, because let's break that down. If you're looking to receive help from someone, even just not even from a coaching standpoint, just even in your regular life too, if you're looking to receive help to fix an issue that you're having, is it not counterproductive for you to lie even that much? How can somebody help you if you're giving them 90% of the truth, or 50% of the truth in some cases, 10% of the truth in some cases? You have no idea some of the shit that people try and tell me. And it's like, but you're asking for my fucking help. How can I help you? How can I help you if you are doing that? I can't, because you're not giving me all of the information that I need to fix that problem. And the thing is, like I said a couple minutes ago, I know they're lying to me. Everybody does. It's like you're not talking to a child, right? And I don't want to come off like we're calling Jaron a liar. It's not that. But there is still a lie that is taking place. And it's not going to affect me. It's not going to affect Adam. Who it is going to affect is Jaron, because this is why that day trading curve to consistency and like professionalism and becoming a full-time trader takes as long as it does. Very few people are actually working on themselves. And it's such a problem. What would you, if you could give Jaron just like one thing to work on, or one piece of advice, what would it be, Adam?
Well,
where should he start? Like, where should he start? It's a tough question.
Resist the temptation to get away, to get away with it, right? Just because we can do it. And I'm just taking from from listening in on the trading clinic, right? So it's a limited view of him. I don't know him, and so just from a pinhole perspective, it's resisting the urge to get away with it. And I say that to myself and all traders. There's always this urge, if I could just get away with it. And that is where the downhill slide starts. Just don't go there. Don't try to get away with it. Because then this is the hardest part, I think, with, not just we all face is learning traders, is you don't realize you got away with something that you shouldn't have, because you take unnecessary chances. And so then you get away with it. Then you think it's appropriate behavior. And part of what probably people spend 60% of their learning curve in, if not more, is undoing the stuff that they got away with. Yeah. Right? Which comes back to lies. So hopefully that's a sum. To boil it down, resist the urge to get away with something that you shouldn't be doing.
Yeah, you need to call yourself on it like fucking immediately. Like you cannot give yourself an inch. And this is where, like, if people that are watching this that are traders that maybe haven't worked on themselves, they still lie to themselves, right? If you consider yourself a person, a man or woman of integrity or honor, you believe yourself to, be an honorable person. What you say you mean, and what you say you're going to do, you do. If you are what you say you are, then fucking do it. You cannot give yourself that. Even if the lie is that much, it doesn't matter. It's not the truth. One of my biggest pet peeves out there, especially nowadays, is when people say, well, that's your truth. That's my truth. Fuck that. I hate that. There's no such thing as your truth or my truth. There's only truth.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what we've kind of been led down this path of a false reality, especially lately. And I don't want to stray too much off, but I do think it's important to talk about, because it's become acceptable to lie. That's what that is. When people say, well, this is my truth, or that's his truth, or your truth, whatever. But there's only one truth. There is no your truth or my truth. And I understand we can get into the whole, it's perception and everybody perceives things differently, but fuck all that, man. No, that's unacceptable. You're giving yourself an out. You cannot give yourself an out, right? And not to dwell on the lie aspect of this too much, because I want to get into a little bit of the technical aspect now. Now to move on from the lie, I think we've covered that enough. Let's talk about where he entered and then correcting that. So it's important as traders, when you fat finger, you need to get out. It's not a trade that was intentional. It doesn't matter if you're making money in it or not. When we're learning to trade, it's about discipline and control and self-restraint. It's all of that. And if you make a mistake, mistakes are going to happen. There's nothing wrong with making mistakes. Don't get me wrong. I fat finger trades all the time. I do it at least once a week. Okay. It happens. There's a lot going on. Things are moving fast, right? It happens. But we need to take that trade off. If that's not the intended trade, then what the fuck are you doing in it? And then there's another lie. Sorry?
You have no trade plan.
No, there's no plan for it.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
so
no
now
plan for it.
You're suddenly surfing, on some wave you never meant to take. Right?
Exactly.
I mean, you're going to think emotional. You're going to you might get lucky, but then you just got away with it. Yep. And then it's like, oh, okay, well, next time I actually fat finger, you almost have permission to, well, why don't you just double your normal size while you're at it?
And that's what happened in this trade, right? He did get rewarded for piss poor trading behavior and habits. He got rewarded for it.
You can fix it.
Yeah.
Then 5 months, like you were talking in yesterday morning, months down the road, that habit that you told your brain was good, you're setting yourself for a fall you can't possibly imagine, because the one day it squeezes 20 points, you thinking you're going to fix it, and you just blow through 70, 80 grand you just work to build, right? That's where that starts. And that's why
100%.
We're applying the discipline at these early stages of Wheelhouse 1 and 2 to make sure that stuff, you don't get away with it. It's the only way is to address it at the foundational level.
Yeah, 100%, man. And I see so many traders do that. See, what a lot of people don't understand the stuff that I talk about on video, and the reason, like where I'm coming from, I'm not coming from today or tomorrow. I'm thinking 5 years ahead in your career. That's where I'm trying to get you, 10 years ahead. Okay. And this is where a lot of people will miss the points of what I'm talking about. And they'll try and fight me in the comment section because they're not understanding. They're very short-term thinkers. I'm not. In fact, any person that reaches a certain level of success will never think short-term. Short-term, it doesn't matter. Short-term is your sample size is too small. It doesn't matter. It's irrelevant. It's about that long-term. It's about 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road. So when traders are making these mistakes, and it's like, well, I made $100 or I made $10,000. There's some people out there, I made $100,000. Talk to me in 5 or 10 years. We'll see if you're still around. I guarantee you won't be, because you're not looking at it correctly. There's a reason why I've been doing this for a decade, and no matter what market conditions throw my way, I will always be around. And when you are a professional trader, that's where you guys want to get to, right? Your family relies on you to pay the bills through your trading. That's what's going on here. You're making money. This is your career, and people count on you. You have mouths to feed and a roof to keep over your head. And if you give yourself that inch Could you imagine, just think about it, 10 years down the road, the conversation you need to have with your wife or husband, and you have to explain to them that you just fucking blew up, man. Now what? Now what? You just completely throwing everything away because when you were learning to trade, you didn't listen, you didn't want to correct habits. And that's a major issue. And some of you may be saying, oh, well, that's not going to happen. I've seen it. Don't argue with me on this. I've trained over 30,000 traders at this point. I've been coaching for 8 years. That's a long time. I have worked with a lot of traders, guys. I know what I'm talking about when it comes to this. I've seen it. I've seen traders that they all think they're swinging dicks and they're badasses and everything else. And they're no longer out there. They're gone. And they were doing really well, but they didn't listen when it came to correcting certain behaviors. It's very easy for traders to lie to themselves because we get rewarded greatly for piss poor behavior. In fact, one of my biggest trades years ago was on SIG, and I revenge traded it. And I've told this story 1,000 times before. And I got rewarded for revenge trading, which is cardinal sin as a trader. But I called myself on it, and I called myself on it in front of 500 people. I have no problems doing that. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And that was it was a massive trade. It was a massive trade. It was one of my biggest trades to date at that time. And if I didn't correct that behavior, I wouldn't be sitting here right now. It would have caught up to me because that was a risky trade and I just barely got away with it. And we're talking probably 7 years later. I'm still talking about it and it still bothers me, right? You don't want to get away with shit, guys. That's what I want to get at.
Yeah.
So I think, 100%. Yeah, absolutely. We have one more point to talk about, and I think this is a good one. So let's get into it. Let me share my screen again, folks. Sorry about that. Make sure those are on. I'll put the subtitles on again. Remember, there is a little bit of an echo, but you guys will get the point.
Again, I think I could have bottom ticked it a little better on the entry.
Why?
Okay, to give you guys a little bit of background, because I understand it's hard to hear. What Jaron's talking about is his entry. He wanted a bottom tick entry. One of his issues, and I said even before I knew he was an engineer, I said he's most likely an engineer, which he is. And I found through the years of coaching that engineers will have a problem with perfection. They want to go for that perfection. And you're going to hear in this him going on and on and on, even after being corrected. His next sentence after that, after Kelvin corrects him and tells him like it's unnecessary, he corrects him. He goes right back into it. That I really want and I really need that perfect bottom tick. That is ridiculous. Okay, that's going to cause issues. So we'll press play again here. This is a pretty short clip.
So bottom tick that you executed into the level. Why would you not execute into the level? Why could you have bottom ticked it? If you're not executing into the level, what are you waiting for? You're waiting for it to come lower. Like the strategy is to execute into the level and accept your risk. That's exactly what you did.
So one thing I want to talk about here is that green line. You can see it. That's the entry level. Okay. So he wanted it lower than the entry level. Now let's think about this rationally for a second. That's a very hindsight way of looking at it. It's one of the things that traders have major issues with is they will always be thinking in hindsight. How do you know it will go lower than that level? Do you understand what I'm saying? Like, unless you have a literal crystal ball or a black mirror and you're some sort of wizard, there's no way of knowing that it would go that much lower than the level. Do you understand how ridiculous that is? Like, this is the conversation that traders need to have with themselves. Okay. They need to put things into perspective in their own minds to show them how ridiculous some of their thoughts are. This is why I always tell people to have conversations with themselves out loud. Say things out loud. Don't just say it in your head. Because when you say things out loud, you're going to catch things. You got to trust me on this. I have conversations with myself all the time. That's how I problem solve. I don't just problem solve in my head quietly. I'm in my office and I'm doing problem solving in one way or another, and I'm talking out loud, just like I'm talking like this. And I work things out like this because you'll catch yourself. You'll catch yourself saying something and you'll be like, well, wait a minute. If I wanted it lower, how would I know it would go lower than that level? There's no way of knowing. Like, that's hindsight. I need to cut that shit out. So I wanted to point that out, where his entry is the level. You are to enter into the level. How do you know it's going lower? It's very hindsight. Okay.
You execute it into the level. How can you possibly bottom tick something when you're trading one contract and you execute into the level and it pushes through by 20 cents?
Yeah, I guess I get to the point where I look at my entry chart and don't like the fact that I'm not top stuff.
So right there, and I want to point this out, he's not listening to Kelvin. He's not listening. He's trying to defend himself. So when you try to defend yourself like that, like, did you guys catch that? So Kelvin corrected and totally made a valid point. The point that I just made, how could you possibly know it's going to go an extra 20 cents? He's not listening to Kelvin at that time. At that time, while Kelvin was talking, the only thing Jaron is doing is he's thinking to himself about why he did it. And he's trying to justify it. He's lying to himself. So you see how part one of this, lying to yourself, comes into this now, about striving for perfection. Kelvin has now corrected him. He should see exactly what Kelvin has said. Jaron is a smart man. He should see immediately, oh shit, of course. What am I doing? How would I know that? But he's not, because he's not listening. Listening is something that people need to start working on. Listening is something that everybody knows the Webster's dictionary definition of, but they do not actually actively know how to listen. It's something that you need to work on as a trader. And that's proof right there. He was not listening because, again, he's trying to defend himself.
Well, and real quick, Pat, and it's so critical because right here on the chart and in these words and in this lesson, there's two other things that aren't happening. This is not trusting the process.
Yeah.
And not submitting to the education, because he's more interested in playing the game his way. Yeah. Which I'm guilty of. You know, I mean, we've had conversations about it. If this could have been me on a clinic not too long ago, because I had the vision of how I should be trading according to my rules. Yeah. But my rules were worthless because they weren't getting me any good results.
Of course.
And then acceptance. Yeah. He's not accepting his coach's advice because, like you just pointed out, there's a conversation going on in his head that is divergent from the conversation that he's being led towards the truth of what he needs to do. So there's a divergence right here in this conversation between the truth and the story in his head. Yep. And that's why this coaching is so critically important, and the observation of, wow, I'm not listening to Pat. I'm fighting Pat. You know, something I've told you I'm doing. This is an example right here, right in front of us all to see for traders what it looks like when we're fighting the education. Because we have something different in our mind than what we're told repeatedly, day in and day out, what to do. Take the trade into the level. Well, but I want to get my entries right. I want to trade more contracts. I want to trade like you, Pat. You know, I want. Yeah. And we have to just forget what we want.
Yeah, 100%. It's a major issue that trade. And again, this is something that, you know, a lot of people from the outside looking in, like, you might be looking at this like it's not a big deal. Oh, it's a huge deal. It's going to destroy you as a trader, guys. And again, what I said 5 minutes ago, I've worked with tens of thousands of traders. I know this. I know this to be true. Like, a lot of people don't realize that they're fighting. When I call traders on and I say, like, you're fighting me, stop fighting me. They think the word fight is yelling and screaming and fists and spit flying out of your mouth. It's not. It's not the definition of fighting, not when it comes to trading or with coaching, where you're dealing with a coach. You're fighting him. You need to submit. And again, people don't like that word, especially men. They don't like that word. They don't like that word. It's like, I'm not submitting. I don't submit to anyone. That's your fucking ego talking. You need to admit that you don't know shit. Okay? That's why you're here. That's why you're trying to learn. You're learning. You shouldn't know anything. You're not going to know much, right? So just submit and take that in. It's important that new traders submit. Okay? Again, it's a word people don't like hearing, but it is imperative that you do so, or else it's just going to take you longer. That's all that's going to do. It's either going to just take you longer, or you're going to blow up. You're going to fail. You're going to go back to doing whatever you're doing, and this, will be lost on you. We don't want that. So,
and one last thing, just to drill home how hard it is to spot this. I'm sorry, it's just
no. That's fine. That's about it, anyways. Yeah.
Okay. It's so hard. I had to do a very powerful psychedelic journey to be shown that I was fighting you.
Yep.
That's how deep reverse my lens was in interpreting information coming from your and Calvo's and the teaching of Tricktrades. It was so hidden and camouflaged and veiled. I had to do an extremely powerful experience, and then it was just like hit me in the forehead like a stone.
Yep.
And it was like, boom, then everything changed. Seeing that one thing, that one truth, that I was fighting you. And it was just like that conversation between Jaron and Kelva there. You're being taught, but the other person has a different conversation going on ahead. And that was 100% me. Different conversation, not being reached, not listening, not being able to hear because of that fighting. So hopefully that can clarify how hard it is to weed that stuff out.
Yeah, I don't think like a lot of people don't realize like how deep-seated, deep-rooted a lot of these issues are. And this is why I'm such an advocate of the use of psychedelics in day trading. People years ago, when I first started talking about this, they would laugh at me. Like, it's like I should have banners of trippy mushrooms in the background or something. No, don't be a child about it. Like, these are useful tools. And it's like, if you're pushing for success and you're telling yourself you'll give 100% to it, that's what 100% means. You'll do anything and everything. And the thing is, it's like, if our ancestors have been using this stuff for 40,000 years plus, and that's just what's on record, what's wrong with it? That's because that's in your head. You've been brainwashed into thinking that stuff is bad. It isn't. Like, does Adam come across as a drug addict? Does he come across as some sort of like, I don't know, like flaky fuck? No. He's a successful, responsible adult that knew he needed help, and look at the conclusion he came to. It solved the problem immediately. Now, will that do that for everyone? No, not for everyone. There's some people that shouldn't, right? But that's how deep-rooted some of these issues are, guys. And this isn't surface level stuff. This is deep inside your subconscious that you don't even know that you're doing it. Like, you don't know. This is why I always tell people, you don't know what you don't know. So like, don't fight me on this, right? It's like, if you're just open-minded, and you're willing to do whatever it takes, then why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you want to use something as a tool that can expose you for the flaws that you have? I think that's why a lot of people are afraid of psychedelics, because they hear that. No, that's a good thing, guys. It's a good thing. It's not scary. Like, a lot of people talk about, oh, what if I have a bad trip? There's no such thing as a bad trip. People that say it's a bad trip, they're not using it as tools. Those bad trips are where the work gets done, right?
Well, and they're usually happen because they're not prepared. We started this conversation off by talking about the gap. mushrooms are the fastest thing I've ever seen to figuring out what the gap is between what truth is and the stories we're telling ourselves.
Yeah.
That's just like, boom, collapses it immediately. Yeah. Nothing else can do that.
And you want to make that change too.
Pardon?
I said, and you want to make that change too.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but it's like, fuck, man. Like, it's important that people realize that it's like, you want to make that change. This isn't scary. It's not something that's going to like change your entire personality and you're going to start wearing fucking dreadlocks and beads in your hair and wear a crystal in the center of your forehead. Like, that's fucking nonsense, right? Those are people that lose their minds because they're already have lost their fucking minds, right? Like, don't be afraid of this stuff. I mean, I know that this is probably a conversation for a whole other time, and we do have the Ascension podcast where we discuss this stuff in great detail. But, you know, this, like, why wouldn't you want something that can expose the truth immediately? That's how we get work done, right? And you know, you can see that, you know, Jaron's, he's hiding, right? That's what people do. It's not like, I don't want to say that like it's a bad thing. Obviously it's a bad thing, but it's not in where it's like, it may come across like we're calling him out or something, or being very aggressive or forceful with this. That's what this takes, guys. Right.
And he is doing the work. So he is
doing the work. Absolutely.
And he is, to his credit, showing up and saying, hey, I'm going to expose myself because I know I'm doing things wrong. So he is an example of someone who's working through the problem and getting better.
And he is doing very well. Like, I think it can come across like sometimes because we're super honest at Tricktrades, and the videos that we do where 99.9% of all other services would be choosing the traders that are just smashing it. So then it's better for marketing. Look at us. That's not helpful. It's not helpful. And the fact of the matter is, and the truth of the matter is, Jaron is doing extremely well. If I could pull it up, which I'm not going to do because it would take too much time in this episode, I could show you all of his entries. His entries are ridiculously good. He's doing very well. In fact, he's doing better than most. He's getting into the upper wheelhouse now. He's out of wheelhouse 1 into wheelhouse 2, almost on the cusp of wheelhouse 3. He's doing extremely well. He's progressing very quickly in our new sizing program. So it's like, don't get it twisted. This is what we strive for at Tricktrades. This is the attention to detail. This is what separates us. We don't want to just produce things and put things out there where it's like, look at us, look at our members killing it. And it's like, if you actually know what you're looking at, he is killing it and our members are killing it. But it's like, there's a proper way, there's a truthful way to go about it. Because that's what I want. I never want someone to accuse me or anyone that works in my service as bullshit. I've fired people for less that have worked for Tricktrades. If I smell something that isn't right with what they're portraying, they're fucking gone, like immediately. I won't stand for that. It's truth over everything. I don't care what the truth is, right? The truth we can deal with. Lies, I cannot deal with. And you shouldn't have to. And especially when it comes to people paying for a service and they're paying for a premium service, that's what you get. This is the attention to detail. Every single day, in fact, this is what we do on screen share after the morning session. Our trading session is done. You saw that clinic that Jaron and Kelvin were doing. That's every single day. It's a 45-minute designated, sometimes a little bit more, designated session every single day. And if you're having problems, you can get that done too. So if you're a trader that takes this seriously, why wouldn't you go for that? So I think if you have any closing thoughts, Adam?
No, Pat, no, I think that really covers some really just essential things for traders to be thinking about, you know?
Yeah, I think so. I think people that are actually watching these videos, man, I wish this sort of stuff was out there when I first started. There wasn't any of this out there at all. I've talked about the 3 or 4 trading educators that were out there at that time, and it's laughable. And I hope people appreciate the level of free education that you're getting, because remember, this is free. And make sure to like the video, please. Comment, it does help. Share the video, if you're feeling extra generous to share it, I would really appreciate that. It just helps get the word out. But make sure to subscribe and follow. And on that note, guys, I'm going to wrap this one up. Thanks, Adam.
Thank you, Pat. Thank you, everybody.
Later, guys. Bye-bye.